Welcome back. Masked gunmen took control of the Gaza Strip last week, splitting the Palestinian territories into effectively two separate areas. Those gunmen were fighters belonging to the Islamic resistance movement, also known as Hamas. The group doesn't always follow the way of the gun. In January of last year, Hamas gained a majority in the Palestinian parliament when it won the Middle East's second successful democratic elections ever. Hamas's popularity stems from its primary focus, civil society projects at a grassroots level. But the group also enjoys support from Iran, and Khaled Mashal, Hamas's political chief, lives in Syria. Hamas's refusal to recognize the State of Israel and renounce violence has been blasted by the US and Israel. Both countries have refused to endorse the democratically elected Hamas-led government. Instead, their support lies with Fatah, the secular party which dominates the West Bank. An emergency Palestinian government's been in place for just over a week, but Gaza and the West Bank remain politically split. What are the options for addressing the division? Hopes that the political rivals will meet anytime soon seem slim. The Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh has called for renewed talks with Fatah. He says the talks should be held on the basis of forming a unity government again. But the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has dismissed the offer. The Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has proposed deploying an international force to Gaza to counter what he calls Hamas's growing power. But Hamas officials oppose that move. They say they'd see an international forces presence as an occupation. We're joined once again by our guest in London, Dr. Azam Tamimi, an author and the director of the London-based Institute of Islamic Political Thought. In Tel Aviv, Daniel Ben Simon, columnist at the Haaretz newspaper. And in Cairo, Ambassador Hassan Issa, former director of the Israeli department in the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Dr. Tamimi from London, first of all, may I ask you, I highlighted the differences there between Gaza and the West Bank, but it's more than just geography and it's more than just Fatah and Hamas, is it not? There was a poll taken by the Palestinian pollster Khalil Shikaki. He said the West Bank regards Gaza as nothing but a big refugee camp. There is, in a sense, one group looking down on the other, is there not?
Well, Khalil Shikaki should know better. He has always predicted the wrong things.
So you don't agree with that? You think that they're very similar when in the West Bank you have a middle class? If you want to be a doctor in Gaza, you can't train in the West Bank. In Gaza, you're likely to be younger, poorer, less educated. What are the similarities between the two areas?
Well, the occupation makes it difficult for people to work here and there. It has nothing to do with geography. It's to do with the fact that occupation causes problems in both sides. But as far as Hamas is concerned, let nobody be fooled. Hamas is as popular in the West Bank as it is in Gaza. My hometown in Hebron, for instance, Hamas won all the seats in parliament. It's only just because there are these thugs of Fatah, gangsters, who are going around burning the offices of Hamas. That is no indication. These are thugs, and Hamas is lying low because the West Bank is still under occupation.
I suppose the point I'm driving at here is that if Fatah receives aid from the West and if Hamas in Gaza is further isolated, then the divisions and the distance between these two areas will become greater.
Well, as Ismail Haniyeh said today, any aid that comes to the West Bank will be good news to the Palestinians anywhere, because that money should not have been suspended in the first place. The sanctions were wrong anyway, and they should be lifted. Now, the fact that they are being lifted on the West Bank first is good news, although we know there are some sinister intentions. But whatever these people, whatever conspiracies they've had in the past, they've failed and they will fail again.
Daniel Ben Simon, if I can ask you about President Abbas at the moment, portrayed by some people as a moderate, and yet he's never outrightly condemned the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which has been responsible for attacks within Israel. Is he a moderate in any sense of the word as far as Israel's concerned, or is he just not quite as extreme as Hamas?
I must tell you that after Arafat, Israelis were enthusiastic about having Abu Mazen because of his moderate talk, because of his view of two states, because he was somebody that was close to Israel's view as living together in peace. And until now, they have not changed their mind. They just think that he's not strong enough to impose his politics on all Palestinians. And since the split, they see him as the only chance in town, except for the maybe having Barghouti. In Israel, they talk a lot about Marwan Barghouti being released from jail and maybe becoming one day the president of the Palestinians.
Well, let's remind our viewers, this is Marwan Barghouti, currently serving 5 life sentences for murder.
Exactly, exactly. And the Israelis would like to have a strong man who can be able to strike a peace deal and live alongside Israel. They really are looking for somebody who can take control. Until now, the perception of Abu Mazen was a bit as a weak person who cannot really control the whole Palestinians. And what happened the last 3 weeks was a proof for the Israelis that Abu Mazen is not the ideal. He's somebody that they would like to work with, but he's not seen as a strong person who can really have a strong government and impose his politics on Palestinians.
Ambassador Issa in Cairo, is there a danger here that if Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen as he's also known, gets too much help from the West, allies himself to some extent with the United States, that this will backfire amongst the Palestinians?
Indeed, indeed. This is a very good observation. Yes, it would backfire very much. But I just want to remind my Israeli colleague that Mahmoud Abbas was a prime minister himself during Arafat's time. As prime minister, he was just as moderate and just as reasonable and just as willing for peace as he is now. But his problem is that he never got any assistance, whether from our friends in Israel, our friends in the United States, or the European Union. Ultimately, in the end, after 4 months, this is what they call the 90-day ministry, the 90-day cabinet, failed and went out. Again, he became head of the Palestinian Authority. Still, he is not backed. Until Fatah, until Hamas took over Gaza, he was left over with no support whatsoever. It is high time that Mahmoud Abbas gets enough support so that he can face the situation, the present situation.
Dr. Tamimi, I'm going to switch the argument to London at the moment, Mr. Ambassador. Apologies for interrupting. But I want to ask Dr. Tamimi, I don't think you're going to say you want to see a 3-state solution. I haven't heard a single Palestinian who has said this is what they want to see. But in your heart of hearts, do you see it drifting that way? 1 state in Gaza, 1 state in the West Bank, separate deals with Israel?
I can only hope that it's not going to be this way. But unfortunately, the guys who are going to meet tomorrow in Sharm el-Sheikh are likely only to make it happen. The desperate, the opportunists, and the panicking. The desperate is Mahmoud Abbas, the opportunist is Ehud Olmert, and the panicking are the Egyptians and the Jordanians. And by siding beside Mahmoud Abbas, despite all the mistakes he has made, or the unconstitutional decisions he has made, they are going to head us in that direction, which is very regrettable. Frankly, I'd like to see only one entity, and that is a liberated Palestine. Israel has no right to exist anyway.
And if it does come to that, what will it mean for the Palestinians? Briefly, if you will.
Well, they will continue the struggle, and Mahmoud Abbas will not be able to last long. Mahmoud Abbas has sold out in the eyes of many Palestinians. He is so weak. He missed an opportunity to be the leader of all the Palestinians and have chosen to be the leader of a gang of criminals.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. And thank you very much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. Thanks for watching.